If you are a great fighter fighting outside of the UFC, you are wasting your career, quote, end quote, Joe Rogan. It's a simple statement, isn't it, guys? And you've thought it many times. You hardcore fans have had that very conversation with your friends, haven't you? But nobody's actually brought this forward. Nobody's actually set that down out there. Dana White has never said it. Never. Joe Silva didn't say it. Lorenzo Fertitta didn't say it. And I'm sure they thought it. I'm sure they were like you. In private conversation, they never actually said it. Scott Coker never said it about his guys. Hey, if you're not fighting here, you're wasting your career, right? It's one of those things. Ray Sefo has never said it. I mean, just by example. It's never actually been stated, and it was very powerful once it came out of Joe's mouth. Now, Joe's premise for that is nobody's watching. That's why you're wasting your career. It does not matter how good you are. Nobody's watching. And that is the litmus test that I would love to discuss with you. First off, everything's perspective, isn't it? Right? Everything is perspective. Like, if I was to tell you you're going to do 8 hours of work and you're going to hate every second of it, but you're going to do it because I'm going to give you a pack of cigarettes when it's done. And all of a sudden you go, hey man, hand me the shovel. Hand me the shovel and stand back. That isn't going to happen, is it? That pack of cigarettes isn't going to get you to go put in 8 hours of work. But in prison, it does. In prison, that would be a great big reward. If I told you you're going to get a pillow and an extra blanket if you do a week of hard labor, that's not going to motivate you. But in prison, it would. And I only bring that to you just to share perspective. So, I know what it's like to fight when nobody watches. I had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was on my 7th fight when the venue I fought at possessed a camera. And that wasn't live and that wasn't going around the world. But back then there was something called VHS, and if you waited 3 or 4 months and they liked your fight, you could get stuck on a shelf somewhere. So, in today's world, you use a likely suspect. You got one championship. You got the Bellator, PFL, even though it's the same owners, you're going to have a Bellator brand, you're going to have a PFL brand. Bare Knuckles out there doing his thing. You got Top Rank, you got Eddie Hearn. I mean, not for nothing. Even if their numbers, right, you're going to have your hierarchy, of course. You're going to have somebody that's watched them, but even the lowest watched, if it was to go back to my first 7 fights, my goodness, I could only imagine what that would have been like. So the idea that nobody's watching, right now we're in a digital world. You got social media. I didn't get to live like my high school and college career, some of the hardest I worked, some of the big sacrifices I ever made. I speak for my teammates as well. We didn't get any kind of recognition. We would have loved to have done that, just to have somebody snap that off and put that on Twitter. Oh, we'd have gone and read it. Maybe we'd have had 10 or 15 comments. Oh, could you even imagine? We'd be on the bus headed back to Eugene. We'd all be reading over each other's shoulders to see if there was one single thumbs up or a like. So the idea that nobody's watching, I mean, I'm just sharing for you, would come down to perspective. And then overarching to Joe's point, because we do all get it, don't we? We do all get it. But what is a career? I mean, what are you looking to do with your career? Were you looking to be recognized? Were you looking to win a belt? Were you looking to win a specific championship? Or were you looking to make as much money as you could? And a lot of times, wherever the most eyeballs are is the most money. I get where that would make sense, but not always. And you would have to wonder which one you are. And let's say a genie pops out of a bottle, right? He's got ultimate power, the magic wand, but he's going to give you a choice. Be world champion. And it doesn't matter how good you are. We're going to get a world championship around you. Believe me, they put the belt around plenty of guys that sucked. We're going to get you a world championship. I'm not going to tell you anything about where your skills will be. I'm going to get you a world championship, or you're never going to be world champion. But I will have you a jackpot full of money. that when this game is done being played, what you do with your time for the rest of your days will now be a choice. Right? When a guy says he made enough money to retire, that's what he's telling you. I can now do what I want with my time. I'm no longer trading hours for dollars. So the genie pops out of the bottle. Which would you rather have? Would you rather be the world champion? And who knows where you go from there? Maybe you turn that into money, but maybe you don't. But you have that accolade, you have that accomplishment, you get that recognition from the world. Or, when you're done playing this game, you will spend your time doing what you want. It'll be a choice. And I'm talking about money. If you had to choose between those, which one would you choose? Because there's a number of reasons to understand where you are in your career and who you are as an athlete. Do all of those eyeballs and all of those people create an environment and a pressure that is going to wilt you? If you know that about yourself, there's another path. And what does make a career, right? I mean, that's the interesting part. That's the entire interesting part. You're wasting your career. What is a career? I have admired guys, and I got this from a friend of mine named Daryl Christian, who's one of the great athletes that I ever grew up with. One of the absolute best. Would have been our Olympian as a 2-time Open champion. This guy was great. And when it was all over, he told me that something that he will look at other guys in value. It's no longer an undefeated season or a gold medal here or there. That what he will look at in value and envy and wish that he had was guys that had an ability to extend their career. Guys that found a way to stay in it longer, to have more memories, to live that lifestyle. And it was very impactful on me. And as I got out of the sport, I fully understood what Daryl meant. So I'm just suggesting for you, what is a career? If you've got a path and less people are watching, maybe less people are watching because it's not as good. Maybe the competition isn't as good. But you're smart enough about yourself to know I can go out and get 5 more paychecks over here than I can over here, and the money's equal, which means I can make 5 times as much over here. And I was never in this for people to watch. I mean, that's the kind of guy that needs people to watch. I've lived that life. Like, I don't judge that guy. That's a great motivator. But that's the kind of guy, right? Steve Miocic, by example, does not need anybody to watch. He's not looking to go out and get cuts in line at the strip club on Friday nights. Most fighters are. So they need those eyeballs. They need that bouncer to call them up. And they need that girl with the daddy issues and the tattoo on their back to be giving them the bedroom eyes. They need that. But there's other guys that don't. I got Miss Brittany. I don't need any of those things. But Miss Brittany likes nice things, so I got to go get the money. Right? I mean, it's one of those situations. So my career isn't going to be adjudicated on how many people are watching. Not to mention, when all those people are watching, that guy's got a 50% chance of getting his ass kicked in front of all of those people. Like, I'm not convinced that that's the only thing that a person looks at, but it sure is an interesting point by Joe. Because if you do go look at the market and you do go look at the landscape, the UFC pays market value every time. The UFC is the leader in upping market value. The UFC is the only organization that keeps doing this to their bottom. But they do pay market value. Guys go out and they get shopped around, they come back and forth, and a lot of times Dana will go, hey man, I'm at my limit. And the guy is a whore. The guy just wants more money, and he goes and signs somewhere else, which is no problem at all. But they're usually kind of equal. And to Joe's point, it sounds like they shouldn't be. I mean, to Joe's point, if this is where the attention and this is where the prestige is at, I shouldn't have to pay you what he does. If he's going to pull you away and put you over in front of nobody, as opposed to me just putting you in front of everybody, he should have to pay you how many times more? 5? What would you do it for? 3 times? Twice? You're probably not going to do it for even money. If it's even money, you go where the eyeballs are. But it's always been even money. It's always been market value, and a lot of people go over here. Why? Maybe they don't see it the same way. Maybe they don't see those eyeballs. Maybe they see an opportunity coming. Maybe they see longevity coming. UFC can cut you at any time. Generally, nobody's eligible to be cut. Per the contract, isn't what I'm talking about. Per the contract, it's at any time. But generally, nobody's eligible to be cut until they lose 2 in a row. And most guys get to lose 3 in a row before they actually are cut. And you might get a better deal over here. Even money, less people, but I got a 4-fight guarantee I can lose them all. I mean, right, but that's part of your career. See, this is what a career is. Career is what you did with your time, with your skill set to make a living. That's what a career is. It doesn't have to do with how many people were watching. And when it's all said and done, sure, people would like to be recognized. Sure, people would like to be appreciated. Sure, they would like that, but it goes very fast. And if you are a single guy out on the town, right, you need that kind of adoration. It's a very different thing. If you're a married guy and you got, right, I mean, it's one of these situations. This is what I'm going to do each day, right? I got a little maniac sitting right over here, gets me up every single day at the same time. It doesn't matter how I feel. Doesn't matter what's going on. Doesn't matter if I won. Doesn't matter if I didn't win. He wants to play. It's one of these situations. What do I need that attention for? What do I need 100,000 people to watch me for? I don't care if anybody watched me. I was fighting him for the money. Fighting him for the accomplishment. I was fighting him for the reward. I was fighting him because I like to fight. I'm filling in the blank. It's a great point by Joe. But it would come back to, is that what it's all about? Is it all about having people watch? Having people know that you did it? Because while those people are going to see you win, you've only got a 50% chance of that. You also have the 50% chance of not winning. And what about the guy that was able to extend his career? Or what about the guy that was able to understand, this is the perception of my skills, but here's what I actually know about myself, and I can do my best work over here. It's even money, more eyes over here. Even money, more eyes. Twice as hard. My job as a fighter is to make the most money for the easiest match every time. So it's very interesting, philosophically, what is a career? What is a career? Just having the most people see it, having the most people recognize it? That's really great if you're an astronaut and you're trying to get to the moon and you're the only one that did it. This is a fist fight. You have a 50% chance of failure. I'm going back and forth to demonstrate that I see both sides. I take the attention. I'll roll with Joe. I see it in a very similar way. But it's interesting coming from Joe because the guys that he personally looked up to didn't. If you follow Joe, it's between Rickson Gracie and Eddie Bravo for his jiu-jitsu idol. Both have something in common. They never fought in the UFC. Or if you looked at who Joe says is just the overall all-time greatest, it's Fedor Emelianenko, who never fought in the UFC. The greats will get their due, and the greats will be recognized, because the greats will find a way. And in today's world of social media and statements and interviews that you could do, you call Joe himself the biggest guy out there. He'll have you on if he respects you. I mean, it's just one of those things where you can get your message and you can get your story out. But if you're a dum-dum that just wants to go to work 3 times a year, oh, punch this, oh, punch that. I mean, if you're a dum-dum, what's the difference if people see you? What's the difference? You could sit a brick down at your mother's table. She'll try to feed it meatloaf. What difference does it make? If you have a personality and you have an attitude, you have something special that you can bring to the table. You have some claims to make people haven't heard before. You got the balls and the skills to go out and back those up when you're given a chance. It's one of those situations. There's a lot of ways to get eyeballs. Do you need people watching? Rickson didn't. Eddie Bravo didn't. I think Fedor did have the people watching. I think he did. But just to use the example, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting claim. Powerful coming from Joe. But I'm just wondering if you guys agree. Would you agree that the measure of a career, no matter how quick, how short, or how little of money you made, comes down to eyeballs? And if you had 1 million eyeballs in one night, and the other guy had 300,000. I mean, you have this huge discrepancy. You could fight over here one time in front of 1,000,000 or 9 times in front of 300, right? I mean, math is very hard. It's a very hard thing to do. There's no way to know if you have 300,000 times 9 or you have 1,000,000 times 1. Like, there's no way to know which number is higher, but it would seem, if you could guess and you were to guess right, that there's a little bit of a conversation and discussion to be had.